students. So, we have seen two definitions of topological entropy. We have seen Adler's definition of topological entropy and we have also seen Bowen's definition of topological entropy. Now, in the case of a compact metric space, both this, because one uses the compactness of the space and one uses the metric property. So, when we are in the realm of the compact metric space, both these definitions coincide, and today we will be looking into how these two definitions coincide and some properties that we can speak out of that. So, we start with our basic assumption. So, our basic assumption here is that X D is a compact metric space. And we have X F our dynamical system. We recall Adler's definition of topological entropy, and Adler's definition of topological entropy is basically using covers. So, we have U n, which is basically the join of U F inverse U F minus n U. You take this join and this where U happens to be a finite open cover of X, and you take n U n to be the minimum cardinality of any subcover of U n. Any finite subcover of U n, anyway our cover is finite. So, you take n U n to be the minimum cardinality of any finite subcover of U n, and then you define the growth rate. So, growth rate H U n happens to be, or you can think of that to be log of n U n, and then the entropy of U, that is the entropy of our open cover U, happens to be H U, which is the limit as n tends to infinity 1 by n H U n, and then you define the entropy of U. So, the topological entropy of U of the system X F, right, is defined as H T X, which is same as H T X F, which happens to be the supremum of H U such that U is a finite open cover of X. So, we define this to be our Adler's definition of topological entropy. So, you can say that this is what is Adler's definition of topological entropy, that H T X happens to be the supremum of H U, that is the entropy of an open cover, where U can be taken up to be any finite open cover of X. Now, we move on to defining Bowen's definition. So, what is Bowen's definition? Now, if you very well recall that Bowen's entropy uses the concept of a metric. So, here we define S to be basically the set of all x y in X, all such pairs you are collecting such that D of f n x, f n y is, or I should say f k x, f k y is greater than epsilon whenever x is not equal to y and 0 is less than or equal to k is less than n. So, this S basically comprising of all such points x and y happens to be an n epsilon. So, this is an n epsilon separated set. For f, and then we define R n epsilon f to be basically the maximum of the cardinality of an n epsilon separated set. So, your S is a subset of X and is an n epsilon separated set. And then we have the growth rate h epsilon f defined as Lim sup as n tends to infinity of log of R n epsilon f divided by n, and then the topological entropy of x f is defined as h f, which you can also write it as h x f, right, which is limit as epsilon tends to 0 of h epsilon f. So, this is basically our definition of Bowen's entropy. And to see to it, both this definition seems to be very different because there are these, both of them are having different approaches, but we will see to it that this is indeed one and the same thing. So, for a compact metric space, both these definitions coincide. So, let us look into the theorem here. For the compact system, x f, we have that is our h t x. Adler's definition of entropy is same as h t x f. You can also push that part in writing in this form, which is same as h x f. So, this is Bowen's definition. So, these coincide, and we now look into the proof of this part. The proof involves a little bit design here, and we will see that that approach also helps us in saying that some things are equivalent. So, it gives us more information than what we would ordinarily be seeing in a proof. So, fix an epsilon positive and let U be an open cover of X. Now, actually we want to relate epsilon with U, and since we are working with any U, so we are looking into an open cover of X with Lebesgue number epsilon. And we let f to be f be an n epsilon separating set, separated set, of minimum cardinality. Now, here I want to actually draw your attention to something. If we look back to our definition of Adler, we are looking into an n epsilon, sorry, Bowen's definition itself, we are looking into the R n epsilon f happens to be, you are looking into the maximum cardinality here, right? Whereas here we are trying to look into minimum cardinality. So, we have an n separated, n epsilon separated set, but we are trying to look into the minimum cardinality. Now, think of that. So, we are now defining here, let S n epsilon f be basically the cardinality of f. Now, think of that, this is basically the minimum cardinality, that means only these many orbits are there, right, which are separated, n epsilon separated. So, if you take rest of the orbits of x, they will be close enough to one of the orbits at some particular point. So, these are the only points which are n epsilon separated, and hence what we try to do is we look into a ball centered at f k x, radius epsilon, take f minus k of that, take its closure, take the intersection of all these closed sets for k going from 0 to n minus 1, and take the union of all these sets, right, for all x belong to f. This basically would turn out to be the whole of x, because all orbits are epsilon close to sum of the orbit in this n epsilon set. So, this turns out to be x. Now, for x in f, any x in f, right, and 0 less than or equal to k less than n, take this ball b f k x epsilon. Now, this is a ball of radius, okay, I think my Lebesgue number should be 2 epsilon here, does not matter. So, if you try to take this particular ball, so this ball will be contained in one of the open covers, one of the elements of the open cover, because the open cover has Lebesgue number at 2 epsilon. So, this is covered in contained, so this is contained in an element of the open cover U you find that f k x, one of them is definitely contained in an element of the open cover U. So, what is the minimum cardinality of U n, right, that would be covering x. So, the minimum cardinality of U n covering x. So, each of for each this of this k you have one here, and so what happens here is your n U n, right, is less than or equal to S n epsilon f. On the other hand, let V be an open cover with diameter of V less than epsilon. Let E be an n epsilon separated set of maximum cardinality. What happens now? So, basically your cardinality of E is your R n epsilon f. Now, every element of V n contains at most one point of E. So, you are looking into V n, right. So, you are looking into the cover generated by joining V with F inverse V and so on. Now, if you think of that part, right, and since this is an n epsilon separated set, every element of E, right. So, every element of V n will contain at most one point of E, and so your R n epsilon f will be less than or equal to n of V n. What is the resultant here is that your n of u n is less than or equal to S n epsilon f, right. This is less than or equal to R n epsilon f, and this is less than or equal to n of V n. And so, we can say that if I take 1 upon n h of u n, this will be less than or equal to 1 upon n log of S n epsilon f will be less than or equal to 1 upon n log of R n epsilon f, and this will be less than or equal to 1 upon n h of V n. Now, we can think of taking n tending to infinity. So, as n tends to infinity, what we get here is, this is basically giving us the growth rate now, right. So, at all places we get growth rate. So, we have this h of u to be less than or equal to, now this is something which is coming out of the minimum cardinality of an n epsilon set. So, we give another name to it, we say that this is h s of epsilon f, this is less than or equal to h epsilon f, and this is less than or equal to h of v. Now, think of that, our u has Lebesgue number epsilon, our v has diameter epsilon, and all for our separated sets, right, these are epsilon separated sets. So, as we take epsilon tending to 0, right, we can think of taking epsilon tending to 0, what we will get is, we will get a supremum for h u, we will get a supremum for h v, right, and this definitely is going to give us the entropy of the Bowen's entropy for f. Let diameter, so because this is having Lebesgue number epsilon, so we are taking, let diameter of u tend to 0, and so since diameter of u is tending to 0, that means that all of these diameter is also tending to 0, and which basically means that epsilon is tending to 0, right. So, because epsilon happens to be the Lebesgue number there. Okay. So, as my diameter of u is increasingly tending to 0, so what we have here is that topological entropy of x, basically I should write it as x f less than or equal to the Bowen's entropy of x f, this is less than or equal to again the topological entropy of x f, because this gives the topological entropy, right, and these basically give the Bowen's entropy. So, we can say that this is same as Bowen's entropy and Adler's entropy are one and the same thing. Now, this gives another information to us that if we start with an n epsilon set of minimum cardinality, we still get the topological entropy out of it. Though we started with maximum cardinality, we start with minimum cardinality also we get the topological entropy. We start with maximum cardinality, we also get the topological entropy, and hence you can start with any cardinality, right. Any cardinality of an epsilon set, you get the topological entropy. So, basically this tells us something more, right, that this we can start off with anything. And then if we try to look into Bowen's definition once again. So, if you look into Bowen's definition, it definitely depends on the metric that we have considered. Since the metric that we have considered, right, gives us what is the epsilon separatedness. Now, on the real line, supposing I look into the real line we have the usual Euclidean metric, and in case of the usual Euclidean metric, one could think of that, okay fine, the distances are tending to infinity, right. So, there is the n epsilon sets, right, the growth rate would turn out to be infinity. But if I am looking into something like log x, right, some entropy like log x, some entropy, some definition of metric using some kind of contracting functions, right, then we would find out that there is an equivalent metric, but under that equivalent metric the entropy turns out to be something different, right, the growth rate turns out to be something different. So, if you look into Bowen's entropy, it is highly dependent on matrix spaces, but then there is an advantage here that we are able to talk of entropy even for non-compact spaces. So, in that sense Bowen's entropy happens to be more important, because we are able to look into it, look beyond what to say compactness, because for Edler's definition of topological entropy we need compactness, because we are working with open covers and we are working with finite subcovers of an open cover. So, that is one advantage which Bowen's definition gives over Edler's definition. The second advantage that we have here is that what happens if we want to look into products. Now, when we try to look into products, right, we are looking into products of spaces, we are looking into products of open covers. Now, that actually turns out to be very messy, and we may not always have the product to be giving us some nice results on entropy. But here in case of Bowen's example, because of this equivalence that we have, you start with an epsilon set of minimum cardinality, or you start with a maximum cardinality, what you get is the same part, right. So, you can exactly have, you can exactly say that the product of, you can exactly define the entropy of a product system. So, something which failed for Edler's definition, something which Edler's definition could not address to, is been addressed by Bowen's definition. But then again we know that all systems are not metrizable, right. You have lot of spaces for which you can say that, okay fine. So, say for example, you have some kind of infinite product spaces, you can talk about compactness there, but then they need not be metrizable. So, Bowen's definition fails for say a large class of spaces for which Edler's definition comes to the rescue. So, if you want to define entropy, especially for compact spaces, we definitely have Edler's definition, we have Edler's definition has an edge there, but then the metric structure also gives us the edge of Bowen's definition, which is a little bit easier to see and easier to visualize, right. It is easier to visualize how the orbits diverge from each other. So, in that sense Bowen's entropy definitely scores better over Edler's definition. So, we try to look into, whenever we talk of entropy, it is always better and it is always easier to work with Bowen's definition. So, look into another theorem here which looks into the product spaces. Now, entropy of product spaces, but when we talk of entropy of product spaces, as I said that Edler's definition does not help us here much. So, we need Bowen's definition here, and again we are looking into our compact spaces. So, we will look into this theorem. So, we have two compact metric spaces and we have basically dynamical systems arising out of these two spaces. Then the topological entropy, now I am looking into the Bowen's definition here. And since we know that Adler's definition is also equivalent, you can say that Adler's definition, Adler's this thing follows from this part, but to start with Adler's and trying to prove this part would have been difficult, but what we have here is that the entropy of the product system is basically the addition of the two entropies. We have already seen that if I have entropy of x, h and f to the power k, right, then it is basically k times the entropy of x, right. So, entropy of f. So, what we have here is we have something more, you can think of that part, that you look into the product spaces. Right. Here we are working with products, not with iterations. So, with products we are basically adding the entropy here. And again proof utilizes some ideas. So, on the space x cross y, we take up the metric So, using the maximum metric on x cross y. One thing more here is that when we are talking of products, we are looking into finite products, right, and on any finite product of metric spaces you can always define this maximum metric, right. So, we start with the maximum metric here. Now, think of this, a set E cross F, right, which is a subset of x cross y, is an n epsilon separated set whenever E and F, okay, these are n epsilon separated subsets of minimum cardinality I think it should be maximum cardinality in x and y respectively. You start with an n epsilon set of maximum cardinality on x, right, n epsilon separated set of maximum cardinality on y, take their product, then definitely it is an n epsilon separated set in x cross y. So, what we have here is that if I look into R n epsilon f cross g, that will be less than or equal to R n epsilon f into R n epsilon g, and hence if I look into, take the growth rate here, right, and then let epsilon tend to 0 here, what we get here is the resultant will be that the entropy of f cross g will be less than or equal to the entropy of f plus entropy of g. On the other hand, if E and F are n epsilon separated, of minimum cardinality, then E product F is also an n epsilon separated set. For F cross G, right, for F cross G in x cross y. And so, what we have here is that R of n epsilon F cross G will be greater than or equal to S of n epsilon F into S of n epsilon G. Now, what happens in this particular case? Here again I can think of taking the growth rate, right, taking the growth rate and taking epsilon tending to 0. What we get here is entropy of F cross G is greater than or equal to entropy of F plus entropy of G. And so, basically entropy satisfies this property that you start with entropy, you start with a system, right, you try to look into the iterate of this, entropy increases, you try to take a product of two systems, again the entropy increases because you are adding up the entropies here. So, entropy as such has nice properties. There are other properties of entropy also, but presently we are not looking into that. As far as metric spaces are concerned, we know that the definition of Bowen's definition goes independent of the metric, because in a compact metric space, right, all metrics are equivalent, right. So, for compact metric spaces we really have a very good collection of entropy, but then the question here is about chaos. So, we again look back into chaos, and we have seen various definitions of chaos, and the definition involving entropy is that positive entropy and this is we are taking as one of the definitions that positive topological entropy is also a definition of chaos. But if we try to summarize all the other definition of chaos that we have taken up, so we have talked about Lie chaos, we have talked about Devani chaos, we have talked about Oslander-York chaos, and I think we have talked about chaos on the interval maps. So, we have talked about chaos for interval maps. So, it would be really interesting to see where does this definition of topological entropy fit in among this part. So, what is basically the relation among all of these? So, if we try to look into the relation among all of this, Lie chaos says that you should have an uncountable scramble set. Uncountable scramble set that means that you definitely have orbits diverging off, right. So, definitely that could be some say sort of evidence of topological entropy. Look into Devani chaos, right. Now, what is the relation of Devani chaos with Lie chaos? So, I think it is known that if you have say a system which is transitive, plus it has one periodic orbit, then that implies Lie chaos. So, a transitive system with one periodic orbit is good enough to imply Lyot chaos. So, definitely Devani chaos for that matter implies Lyot chaos, right, it is a stronger definition. Now, the difference between Devani chaos and Auslander-York chaos is basically the concept of periodic points. Devani chaos is just transitivity, sensitivity and dense periodic points. Auslander-York chaos simply says it is transitivity as well as sensitivity. Now, when it comes up to the concept of minimal systems, right, we have already seen this dichotomy that for a minimal system it is either equicontinuous or sensitive. A minimal system is always transitive. So, a minimal system if it is sensitive, right, it is Auslander-York chaotic, but it need not be Devani chaotic. Right. So, as such the two definitions are different, but where does that tend to in terms of positive topological entropy? We already know that we have an example of a minimal system which has 0 topological entropy. We also have an example of a system which is again coming up from some kind of minimal system, and I am not getting into details over here. So, we have an example which is Auslander-York chaotic and which is not having positive topological entropy. If you have positive topological entropy, that implies Lyot chaos. And then it comes to what can we say about interval maps. So, in general Auslander-York chaos does not imply positive topological entropy. Auslander-York chaos and Devani chaos are again two different systems. It is also possible to get say a Devani chaotic system which is not having positive topological entropy. In fact, you think of positive topological entropy, it need not imply transitivity as well. See, you take two transitive systems, two nice Devani chaotic systems, union of them, they both will have positive, so intervals, they both will have positive topological entropy, some result which we will state now. And if you take the union, right, the union though it turns out to be having positive topological entropy, it is not transitive. So, the other way around is not possible. However, in intervals, in the case of intervals, we have nice results. So, in case of intervals, say Lee and York had proved that period 3 implies chaos, right. So, that is what Lyot chaotic is, the existence of an uncountable scramble set, but we do have positive topological entropy. Implies Lyot chaos. Then if you look into transitivity, then transitivity, if you look into this aspect, we know that on an interval transitivity implies the existence of a periodic point of period 6. It also implies that there is a dense set of periodic points as well as you have periodic points of period 6. So, if you try to look into what are the non-wandering points, right, the whole set happens to be non-wandering. Now, entropy of a system, right, is enough to calculate entropy on the set of non-wandering points. Here our entire space is non-wandering, right. So, there is a large inclination for having positive topological entropy, and indeed transitivity on intervals does imply positive topological entropy. We have also proved that this implies Devani chaos. And definitely this is Auslander-York chaotic. If we try to summarize various kinds of examples, what you get here is that there is some kind of interrelation between them, although there are some things which are not true. You have counter examples for that part. We have already seen an example of a minimal system, right, which does not imply positive topological entropy. So, we need not have positive topological entropy coming up from all places, but if we try to look into, say again if looking into interconnections between them, there are other definitions of chaos which we have not defined. There is something called distributional chaos, there is something called densely chaos, right, and there are implications among them. So, if we try to look into say various definitions of chaos and try to look into what could be the interrelation between them, that itself would be a big project. But right now as far as this lecture is concerned, or maybe this course is concerned, it becomes too much to deal with, looking into all definitions and then looking into what are all the interrelations between them. So, what we will do is we will basically just say that okay fine, these things do hold. There is a nice theory behind all of them and we are not getting into that aspect right now. So, this is basically all the concepts what we have now dealt with is almost all the definitions of what to say chaos, or what I would term as topological chaos. There is another concept of Lyapunov exponents which we have not touched up. So, this is the concept of Lyapunov exponents. Now, these are basically defined for differentiable mappings. So, if we are trying to look into a dynamical systems on a differentiable manifold, right. So, if we are trying to look into basically a diffeomorphism on a differentiable manifold, right, we can come across this concept of Lyapunov exponents. And again if you have positive Lyapunov exponents, that is an indication of chaos, right. So, positive Lyapunov exponents so, this is an indication of chaos. The other concept what we have not studied is ergodicity. Now, this comes in the realm of measure theoretic or measurable dynamics. So, we are not looking into continuous transformations, basically we are looking into measure preserving transformation on a measurable space or on a probability space. And then we are trying to look into whether the time average and the space average. So, you are trying to look into an orbit and you want to see whether the time average and the space average turns out to be the same. The time average and the space average turns out to be same, we say that the system is ergodic, and this is also termed to be chaotic, which we have not looked into. So, there are a few aspects which we have not looked into, but they also imply chaos. Since in one course it is difficult to deal with all different aspects, to work with all different concepts, we have not touched this aspect, but this aspect is also an indication of chaos, and this also comes up under the realm of dynamical systems. So, today we will end with this part, and more so we can take up in the next class. I hope there is no difficulty.